So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending today. I'm Emily, sales consultant at Koris, and we have Nick Osborne, our Lync technical consultant, who will be hosting the live demonstration for you today. So our agenda for today is the live demonstration with Nick, and then we will go through Koris's Lync experience. So Nick, if you don't mind going through the demo. Thank you.
Hi guys, it's Nick Osborne here, technical consultant at Koris. I specialise in Microsoft Lync from sort of design, implementation and support as well. And so what we were planning today was a demo of Microsoft Lync, including the desktop client, showing some of the sort of key functionality around that, the mobile client. Then some of the back-end stuff around the Lync control panel, which is kind of like around day-to-day admin. Some stuff on interoperability, so just kind of let you know how Lync can connect to other PBXs, other things like contact centers or call recording. And then lastly, we're going to go through some deployment gotchas, so letting you some of the real-world issues that we experience on real Lync deployments out there in the field. So yeah, they're the main bits we're going to run through. So I'm just going to move straight to the demo of the desktop client now. So I'm just going to show you. So this is my real Lync client that I use day to day on my desktop, and some of the bits we're going to run through are sort of shown here. So firstly, I wanted to give you a quick sort of summary of the client interface. So Windows app obviously runs on your desktop. We'll see in a bit some of the tight integration with various other sort of Microsoft apps. But kind of running down from the top of the application up here, it's showing my status, and so status in Lync is kind of represents your availability. So Lync generates this from a number of different places. So it does things like look at your Outlook calendar. If you're in a meeting, then it will change your status to in a meeting. If you're doing things like sharing your desktop, then it will change your status to presenting. If you lock your computer, it will show you as away. And if you make a phone call, the status changes to in a call. So this sort of information here around status is what other people will see of your status as well. So the kind of where this becomes very useful is if you want to try and make a call to someone or try and contact someone, you may look them up in your Lync contact list. So maybe if I want to contact a colleague Gary. So I search for Gary, just a quick sort of text search there, and I can now see that actually Gary's away and he's been away for 55 minutes. So based on that kind of status information, I'd probably make a decision to probably call him on his mobile, which is easily done by just hovering over him and clicking to call his mobile. But the kind of key point there is that I've been informed immediately of Gary's availability. And then I can make a quick decision on how best to call him. Prior to having this sort of rich information about people's availability, you may have just called their desk phone straight away, which would have rang through to voicemail, left them a voicemail. Then you may have called their mobile, or you may have tried to email them, and so you'd potentially have tried several different types of communication before you'd have got hold of them. Whereas now Lync's sort of empowering you to make a better decision on how best to communicate with people, and Microsoft call this presence. So presence is kind of key to Lync. In a little while as well, some of the other bits I'll show you, you'll see how this kind of presence information is shown throughout the client and throughout the desktop as well. So moving on to some of the other information towards the top of the client. One of the things Lync can do is detect your location and automatically display that information to other people. So if we look down in my contact list again, if I search for another colleague, Emily, Emily is in our HQ. if I go and look at her contact card, it's automatically detected she is in HQ and displays that information in her contact card. So when you have colleagues that work in different offices, maybe your organisation is spread through a number of sites, or maybe they work from home regularly, we can have the Lync client automatically update to show their location. It's not designed to be a big brother thing. It's designed to sort of help people get a better idea of where their colleagues are and how best to contact them, and it can be turned off, or users can have the option to control it as well. But it's an extra kind of bit of information that helps you kind of locate people and how best to communicate with them. So the other part, looking at the top of the client here, was a little free text box called what's happening today. So this is for users to add even more context to what they're up to. So I could say Lync demo today. So sticking the text in here, this will now appear on my status, showing people what I'm currently up to. So again, if I now search for myself, we'll see and look at my contact card, we should be able to see that it's now displaying Lync demo today. So again, sort of empowering users to provide more information about their availability. They don't have to do this, but they can do, and then it helps to add a bit more context to stuff. So moving on down the client in the view I've got here, what I've been doing when I've been showing you some of these users is searching through the Lync address book. So this address book is automatically generated by Lync from Active Directory. So you have a single source for all your directory information, so there's no need to enter extra telephone numbers or anything like that. As long as it's stored in AD, Lync will pick it up. It also picks up a user's contact list as well. So if you've got any contacts in Outlook, they'll be searchable in the address book here as well. And then through some of Microsoft social connectors, it will pick up LinkedIn contacts as well as that. So just going back to the example of Emily here, this has actually picked up her Lync user from our Lync deployment, and also the fact there is a LinkedIn entry for her, and you can see the little in box in the corner of that icon just there, the tiny little blue and white. But yeah, so it's a single address book. The user doesn't have to really worry about choosing different address books. They just search. Lync searches all the different sources and gives back the appropriate results. So moving on to a couple of other areas within the Lync client. We've got quite a few sort of icons around here showing different things. So we have a conversation history in the Lync client. So conversation history can show who you've called, allow you to look back at previous conversations and restart those conversations. So it's not just audio calls, it's audio calls, video calls, IM, web conferencing are all available within the conversation history. It's also stored in Outlook as well. So you can search this from within Outlook and it will search the conversation history. So it's designed as sort of a user-side way for users to search their previous communications. From a compliance point of view, this can be logged all server-side as well. So in particular, if you're interested in having an auditable track of communications, which you can always have, which you can currently obviously have through things like Exchange on email, Lync can do the same for IM conversations. And things like tracking the setup of file sharing, video conferences, and that kind of stuff as well. If we want to actually use Lync as a phone, which is one of the main sort of functions of it, to use Lync as a PBX replacement, the phone tab shows us a traditional dial pad. So in a little while I'll show you making and receiving calls from the Lync client, but just sort of demoing here, you've got buttons. So for DTMF, if you dial into an IVR and it says press 1 for that, press 2 for that, you can still do all that kind of stuff from the Lync client, and also then showing you your voicemail. So this is integrating with Microsoft Exchange for the voicemail source, and Lync leverages Exchange for the unified messaging part of it. And yeah, so it's showing my voicemails in here as well, so I can manage my voicemails, I can play them, etc. The last part in the client I'm just going to show you briefly is the or up here is the meetings tab. So this goes and looks in my Outlook calendar and pulls through any meetings I currently have, and just shows you the status here as well. And you can use these to join the meetings directly from the Lync client. So I'll just by the way, we're doing our demo here on Microsoft Lync. And so because of that, I can't actually make a phone call from my Lync client, because otherwise I'll put you guys on hold, and that will all sound a bit strange. So I've got another machine with a separate Lync client running on it, which I'll just show you, and we can show you what it looks like when users make and receive calls from the Lync client. Cool. So here's my one of my test users, and we can see one of the things I showed you earlier about updating your what's happening entry. So you can see my user there, Nick Osborne. It shows Lync demo today. That's the text I entered. It shows I'm presenting, because obviously I'm doing this presentation as we speak. Also shows the other user there. We talked about Emily. It shows that she is in the HQ, so it's picked up her location. So if I want to make a call, it's and this is for users, this is quite important, that it's still actually very easy for users to make calls, as well as all the extra kind of information we're giving people around communications. They can still do the normal thing of typing a telephone number. So just simply type a number as you'd expect. So it's also detected that number does belong to a contact in my contact list, which happens to be me, and it's one of my mobile numbers. So as I've typed that number, it's picked up my contact for me, that I've got that telephone number associated. So yeah, for me to just make a call, I can just hit return on there, and a box pops up making the call. So it shows up there, it's calling the number, and in a sec my mobile on my desk is going to ring. And that's it, of making a call. It's just as simple as that. You've got a little timer in the corner showing the call time. This indicator here gives an indication of the network quality. So if there are any network issues that might be impacting the call, that indicator would work a bit like a mobile phone signal strength graph. So you're kind of giving users a bit more information about what's going on in the background. So that was just a quick example of an outbound call. If I just call myself back, you'll see what it looks like for inbound calls. So when a user receives an inbound call, we see a little pop-up on their desktop in the bottom right corner. Sorry, that's a little bit hidden because I've got a couple of screens together. But so there's the pop-up. I've got options. I could deflect it straight to voicemail. If it was a Lync user, I could reply with an IM, or I can just plainly ignore the call, or I can click on it to accept the call. So again, sort of simple interface, but giving users a few more options in the background there to do things like send straight to voicemail, as you kind of expect from a normal telephony system. So just flick back to my desktop here. So yeah, we've been looking at the Lync desktop client. One last thing I just want to show you quickly on here is the call forwarding options. So within Lync, you do have the ability to do things like forward all your calls to a certain number. So maybe I really don't want to be disturbed and I send everything to voicemail, or maybe I want to ring another number. Maybe I'm away from the office and also don't have an audio device on my laptop to use my soft phone, so I could forward all calls to a home phone or a number in another office. I can also choose to simultaneously ring another device as well. So people often find this useful if they move around or away from their desk quite a lot. They can have it simultaneously ring both their mobile and their desktop client at the same time. And then in the background, we've got a few more options on around call forwarding, so we can choose how quickly we want our calls to go to voicemail. We can also set up something called Team Call, which is a way to have your call forward onto your colleagues' phones. An example might be a small team of people that work closely together. They may wish their calls to forward onto another team member after 30, 40 seconds, etc. So in the background, quite a lot more of the voice features that you'd expect are available within Lync. So moving on from the desktop client to the mobile client. So I've taken a couple of screenshots here just from my iPhone client, just to kind of show you what it looks like. This is just some screenshots from earlier today. There's an iPhone client, an Android client, a Windows Phone client, all available that support audio and video over 3G and Wi-Fi to the mobile device. There's also a tablet version available for Android and iPad. And so these sort of screenshots are kind of intended to show you that the experience is pretty similar across both desktop and mobile client. So the user has quite a familiar interface on both the desktop and the mobile device. So one example here is just this one of my groups called Lync Fed. It's on my desktop client on the right here, and then the same group appears on my mobile device client. Also, I've got my conversation history on the mobile client, and if I just move my desktop client out of the way, you can see I've got my meetings tab. I've also got my voicemails as well. So all viewable from the mobile device client, which can work over 3G and Wi-Fi as well. So moving on from client-side functionality, it's all well and good that it looks nice from a user point of view, and the users have got a number of features that kind of make their days a bit more productive. But what about from the server side, and how do we provision users? How complex is that? Is that something that you can manage internally, or do you have to pay a third party to do it, and that kind of thing? So I'm just going to quickly show you the Lync control panel, which is the interface or the GUI for admins to control the Lync environment. So this is one of our Lync systems, and this is the Lync control panel. So I'm just looking at the users view here, and if I want to enable a new user, so it's just as simple as clicking enable users, finding the user in Active Directory. So Lync pulls Lync leverages AD for all your user accounts. When you enable a user for Lync, it simply adds some attributes to that user's active, or sets some attributes on that user's Active Directory object. So again, sort of single directory source for the Lync environment. If I just search for a user here to enable. So I've chosen the user I want to enable. Obviously, you could select more than one user to enable at one time. I need to assign them to a pool, which is the equivalent of the sort of, that's the Lync PBX, is the pool that you assign users to. I then choose how I want to generate the email address, the SIP address, sorry, which most of the time we use the user's email address, so that stays on default. And then lastly, if I want to enable them for telephony, so Microsoft call that enterprise voice, but that's the sort of the voice PSTN functionality of Lync. I choose to enable enterprise voice, and then I enter the telephone number I want to assign to that user. Enter a number there, and then the last bit I might want to consider is a voice policy. So this is just controlling whether, the examples here are just whether you want to allow local and national, or you might want to enable them to make international calls. And that's pretty much it. That's the minimum required to enable a user for voice. So you can see that's really quick. There was kind of half a dozen clicks, one key bit of information I've got to enter, which is the user's telephone number, which obviously we need to choose a number to assign to them, and that's it. Job done. The user is now set up for Lync. And then within a minute or two, for the user to sign in, they just start up a Lync client on their PC. the Lync client automatically looks at Active Directory and pulls in their Lync sign-in information and signs them in using their current logged on credentials from their PC. So the user doesn't actually have to do anything to sign into Lync as well. The client will, by default, will automatically start up and sign in once they've been enabled. So hopefully that sort of shows, from a admin point of view, it's quick and easy to enable users. Some of the other things you may wish to do day to day is around controlling certain features, like whether you want to allow them to set up web conferences, so you can have a predefined policy for that. You may wish that some users can have the mobile client but aren't allowed to make mobile calls over audio and video on their mobile device on 3G, so you can force them to have to be on Wi-Fi before they can make an audio or video call from a mobile device. So that's quite useful sometimes from a cost saving point of view. You may wish to enforce users to be on the network if they use Lync, so we have a external access policy that can enforce that as well. So lots of options here, but typically what we find in a deployment is we'll have a baseline of features that are appropriate for the whole of the organization. So when it comes to the day-to-day enabling of users, those features are all set on the default, and from an IT point of view, it's just a matter of choosing the user, enter the telephone number, and clicking enable, and off you go. So moving on from the control panel side, one thing I actually didn't show you on the client side was around the collaboration side of it. So we're doing this demo today on Microsoft Lync, and what we did to set that demo up was just again a few clicks to set up a webinar, basically. As I mentioned, Lync integrates quite tightly with Outlook. So if I flick over to my Outlook client on my PC, so here's Outlook, just showing my calendar. If I want to create a new meeting from within here, I can just say, as you'd expect, double click to create a new meeting in Outlook. If I hit the Lync meeting button, it automatically populates it with all the relevant information for this to be a Lync web conference. So I've got the URL there to join, like you guys would have seen when you joined. You've got the dial-in access numbers, conference ID. So all I had to do was click one button there to turn a normal calendar invite into an online meeting. Again, also when you would have joined this, you'd have seen that if you currently have Lync deployed, then when you click the join meeting URL here, it would have fired up your Lync client. If you didn't have Lync deployed, then it would have taken you to a web browser. So the way you've joined today is no different to what you see here and what I've just done in Outlook to set up a new online meeting. So giving this sort of ability to users to set up meetings and more easily collaborate is great, because they don't have to have a separate account that they have to remember. They don't have to have a separate login like you might have with WebEx and that kind of stuff. It's all integrated with AD, and it's all on a single platform. So moving on from that little section, one of the things I wanted to talk about next was interoperability. We've seen that Lync is a collaboration tool, so we can do things like make voice calls. You've seen we're currently on a webinar, so we're desktop sharing. Earlier we were sharing a PowerPoint. You're listening to us on audio, so we're doing an audio conference as part of this session as well. But how does that all connect to the rest of the world? So Lync itself can connect to the PSTN in the same way that a traditional or any sort of VoIP PBX can, so either through SIP or ISDN. So in the same way that a VoIP phone system would connect to a SIP trunk, typically there'll be some sort of session border controller deployed that securely terminates SIP trunk and connects it into the Lync environment. Or if you currently have ISDN that you'd like to use to connect to Lync, then media gateways can be deployed that convert the ISDN circuits to Lync. So that's all very standard stuff, and there's a number of manufacturers, very well established manufacturers, that provide the equipment to do that. A number of them all supported by Microsoft, and lots of interoperability information. So that's when you've got Lync as your dedicated PBX. If you wanted to run Lync alongside your current phone system, then that's also possible. The two ways we achieve that is through a SIP trunk from the Lync environment to your PBX. So say you've got a Cisco Call Manager, or maybe Avaya, or maybe Mitel. They will all support SIP trunks between a Lync environment and that PBX, and that then allows you to use some of the DDIs that might be associated to that PBX for Lync users. It allows Lync users to call PBX users by extension, and vice versa. And that can actually be a quite nice way to potentially pilot Lync by hanging it off the back of your current PBX, allowing you to pilot some of this functionality before sort of moving forward with a larger scale deployment. The other way of integration is we often use this during a migration from a legacy PBX to Lync. Is we deploy a physical box called a media gateway that sits in line between your current PBX and the ISDN circuit. That allows us to route off calls to the Lync environment. So we can have Lync sit alongside your PBX, sharing the current ISDN connection, and we can again enable specific users on the Lync environment, fork off certain calls that come in on the ISDN just to the Lync environment to test functionality. And then when it comes to migration from the PBX to Lync, it's quite a simple matter of us changing the routing on the media gateway that's now send all calls to the Lync environment instead of to the legacy PBX. So that's a really low risk way of deploying and migrating to Lync, and we use that quite often with our customers. Other areas of interoperability or kind of third-party application support, I suppose, are call recording. So there's quite a large number of manufacturers now that provide call recording products for Lync. So when it comes down to PCI compliance, or again call recording for compliance and auditability, then we can have every audio or video conversation within Lync can be recorded, even down to adding to that file sharing, desktop sharing. All the different modalities within Lync can be recorded and stored if you need to go back and refer to those communications for compliance purposes. That's quite an important one, actually, because often either or sort of previously people have sometimes looked at Lync maybe sort of 3 or 4 years ago to say, how do we do recording, how do we do voice recording, how can we be compliant? Cisco supports that. Well, Lync absolutely does support that as well, and quite often it's the same manufacturers that have provided the call recording products for Cisco or Avaya provide them for Lync as well. Another sort of important enterprise requirement is contact center functionality. So we can do that again through Lync. Lync's got its basic contact center functionality, so we can set up hunt groups or IVRs. So press 1 for this, press 2 for that, and that's actually all native within Lync and an included feature. I'll just flick back to our Lync server here, and so in Lync they're called response groups. But here I've got the web interface that I'd use to create a new IVR, for example, or edit an IVR. So if I just go and look at one of these examples here, we see to set up an IVR, so that's you dial into a telephone number and you go through a number of options to eventually reach the service you require. It's quite a simple setup. We choose a telephone number for it. We choose whether we want to assign an announcement to it, so we can upload a recording to say, welcome to Koris, please press 1 for sales, 2 for support. We choose working hours, so we can change the way the IVR behaves depending on the time of day. So after 5:30, for example, this might be for a receptionist. After 5:30, we can then configure it to send to voicemail. And then we go down to things like we can configure holidays automatically. So at the start of the year, you could program in all the bank holidays. So automatically your reception queue, again, for example, on a bank holiday will go straight to straight to announcement and then forward on to voicemail, or forward to an out of hours service. And then we go on to choosing how we want to configure the IVR. So if you press or say 1, we can perform an action, press or say 2, etc. So that's the basic included contact center functionality with Lync, and that's free. But that's usually okay for some basic stuff within an organization. So maybe reception, IT help desk, maybe an out of hours support number can all be programmed through that response group functionality. But if you need a much richer solution, so a traditional, a modern style contact center where you have supervisors and agent wallboards, and detailed reporting, including sort of shift planning and scheduling, and that can then all be achieved by layering on products on top. One of the products we use is Prairie Fire, which is a long-established contact center product, and they work very closely with Lync as well. Last couple of points on interoperability. I've put video conferencing on there. So Lync can interoperate with existing VC units. So say you've got Polycom units, as long as they're on a relatively recent software version, they can sign into Lync as a video endpoint. So you can still leverage that existing video conferencing estate. Or if you were looking at using Lync and you wanted to have more of a richer native Lync video conferencing functionality, there are a number of Lync VC solutions called Lync Room Systems that have a Lync client running in them with a big touch screen, so you can then have room style video conferencing with Lync, and quite a nice sort of rich experience. So that's also getting quite mature now as well. And the last bit on interop is end user devices. I just realised I've got a bit of a typo there on my on URL, but catalog.lync.com. If you go to that address, that lists all the supported and tested devices with Lync right across the board, everywhere from the media gateways I mentioned briefly to the end user handsets. But in particular, the end user handset part is interesting because there's about 30 or so handsets available for Lync, so able to cater for pretty much all your sort of end user handset requirements, as well as probably 60 plus headsets, from DECT, USB, Bluetooth headsets, over the ear, all that kind of stuff. So there's a really huge amount of end user devices, probably more so than you actually have available with your traditional Cisco or Avaya or Mitel. Part of the fact because Microsoft have opened it up to other people to make the devices, and they're not just made by one manufacturer. There's another plus side to that as well, in that the handsets tend to be quite a lot cheaper than the so the Lync handsets tend to be quite a lot cheaper than the PBX equivalent as well. So yeah, that's a sort of a quick background on Lync interoperability. The last bit I wanted to talk about here was on deployment gotchas. So we've been deploying Lync since before it was called Lync. So when it was OCS, or Office Communication Server 2007, probably about seven or so years ago. So we've had quite a lot of experience on lots of different environments, and so I just wanted to share a few of those with you here. And probably one of the biggest ones we find is around firewall configuration. So a Lync deployment touches pretty much every bit of your infrastructure, so Active Directory, Microsoft Exchange, your LAN, your WAN, and your firewall infrastructure. So there's a few of the Lync server roles that reside within your DMZ, and when we deploy those, it requires a number of ports to be opened up through your firewall, a number of NAT rules to be configured, and some relatively interesting traffic flows for the Lync environment to be successful. When we do the deployment, we will provide a design document that lists specifically the ports that should be open, the directions they should be opened, and the reasons for them, the protocols being used, and that kind of stuff. And where we find typically the problems are is that that will be provided to the firewall team, but sometimes that that doesn't get implemented as we'd expected. An example might be application level inspection on firewalls, where the firewall decides it's going to try and identify different traffic types, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to allow TCP 5061. The firewall says, okay, I'm going to allow SIP, but all SIP is different, and the firewall may not decide that that is a SIP type of SIP that it likes, and so then the traffic can be dropped. So when we come to request these rules to be implemented, we'll often work very closely with the firewall team to understand how they're implementing these rules, and if possible sort of sit next to them so they can show us the work they're doing. Not that we're kind of trying to look over their shoulder, but because there's quite a lot of different vendors of firewall and quite a lot of different ways it can be done, we've been lucky enough to see all these different firewall implementations throughout our experience. So typically we can sit next to the firewall team and give them a bit of guidance, or explain to them why we need the configuration to be deployed in a certain way. So that kind of dependency on the security infrastructure is very important, and that's probably one of the big gotchas we have around the firewall kind of configuration. Another one is PBX integration. So a couple of the points I touched on where we could have sort of Lync hanging off the back of your current PBX obviously requires some configuration on your PBX side if it's a SIP trunk, and on the Lync side. Again, SIP as a protocol, or session initiation protocol, is supposed to be a standard, but pretty much every single manufacturer that uses it deploys it in a slightly different way. So there's typically a little bit of extra sort of tweaking that will need to be done when we run through that setup. We will always provide you with the interop and config docs for your appropriate model of PBX when configuring it with Lync, so we'll give you the guidance on that. But when we run into issues, what we'll do is we will sit down. Oh, so if we run into issues, we'll sit down and we will run traces on our side alongside you running traces on the PBX on your side, so we can see where the tweaks need to be made. And that's a really important thing to be able to do, we find, because when it comes to that sort of interoperability between different manufacturers, we need to give you as much information as possible about what the issues are and what might need to be changed on your PBX, instead of us just saying, you know, it's not working, it's your problem. We will always work really closely to try and provide the debug logs and show you exactly what's happening, down to kind of a network trace showing the SIP packets back and forth as well. So we find that working closely on the PBX integration is really important to make sure we get things implemented smoothly and with as minimal issues as possible. The last one on here is on PSTN migration. So if you are migrating to a Lync deployment, one of the ways we see or we work with our customers to do it is Lync will be deployed onto a new SIP trunk. So maybe the current PBX uses ISDN, and moving to Lync will be taken as an opportunity to also move from legacy ISDN to more cost-effective SIP trunks from a SIP trunk provider. So the careful planning of that sort of migration from ISDN to SIP is really important with this kind of environment, because we need to firstly make sure that the numbers you want to port are portable. So porting is the method of moving numbers from one provider to another, so porting from ISDN to SIP. So we'll work very closely with you to confirm that the numbers are portable. We'll then provide port test calls prior to the actual migration, so we'll test your numbers that will be ported will work on the new service. We'll also have pilot users on the new service, dialing out through test numbers on the new SIP trunk, so you can verify quality, functionality, and that kind of stuff. and then when it comes to the actual real port of the numbers from the ISDN to the Lync environment, we will be able to provide a port time for that on the day it's going to happen, whether that's in hours or out of hours, and again work as closely as possible with you to make sure that porting is as smooth as possible. I think one of the best things that we can do around the porting is we will often have the Lync environment fully provisioned, up and running using test numbers on the SIP trunk prior to the port, so you can verify pretty much everything is working okay, down to, is the reception key working, do I like the way I can call in from a mobile, do I like the announcements and stuff like that. We can verify all that functionality on prior to the port, so you're happy that on the porting day it's just a matter of numbers getting rerouted. Yeah, so they were a few of our sort of gotchas. Again, probably the last thing to mention on the gotcha side is the fact that Lync does pretty much touch every part of the infrastructure. As I said, it relies on Active Directory for its user store, and a schema update is complete on Active Directory when you first deploy it. It relies on your LAN for DHCP options for Lync phones to start up. Across your wide area network, typically there'll be QoS deployed to ensure voice quality, but also call admission control to control the number of calls. It sits on your virtualization infrastructure, so Lync will run as VMs. It integrates with Exchange for the voicemail and calendar integration, and also it sits within your DMZ, working through your firewalls for external access as well. So lots of kind of touch points there, but because we've got quite a few years of experience with this, we're very happy now that we can sort of provide these deployments with as sort of minimal stress for us and you as possible. So I think that's my last slide, and I'm just going to hand back to Emily now.
Yeah, thanks for that, Nick. As Nick mentioned, we have been working with Microsoft from the OCS days, and more recently we've been upgrading and implementing Lync 2013 to our customers. So as you can hopefully see on this slide, you can see that we work with a vast variety of customers, such as Investec Asset Management. So the story about Investec is we migrated their existing Lync 2013 deployment from a standard edition to an enterprise configuration, and this allowed Investec to support future voice expansion and to gain high availability. So what we're doing now is we're in the planning stage to implement voice into their Asian offices. As you could also see, we work with the likes of Saffron Housing Trust. Hopefully you all read and saw the case study that we sent prior to the webinar. So the great thing about Saffron is they have seen the productivity benefits. Likewise with Wise Group and Freebridge, where you would have seen the My Contact Center for Lync, which is a third-party product, which is useful for the Lync contact centers, going back to what Nick touched on earlier. So laying back to the slide, you can see that we work with, leading global foods and drink manufacturers, not-for-profit organisations, schools, colleges, legal and distribution organisations with their Lync environment, whether or not it's just IM and presence all the way through to enterprise voice and the conferencing abilities, and focusing a lot with the housing associations on their contact centres. So I think that is it for today. Really appreciate your attendance today. So if you want to have an offline chat, or if you have any questions at all, please feel free to give us a call on the number you can see on the screen. Alternatively, you can drop myself or Nick an email. My email address is emily.stead@koris.co.uk, and I really hope you found the webinar beneficial for you. Thanks so much.